Go inside the Crimson Tide with your hosts Rodney Orr and Gary Harris, keeping you informed on everything Alabama. Tider Insider TV, brought to you by Tuscaloosa Tourism and Sports.
All right, welcome in everybody to a brand new edition of Tider Insider TV. This is the bye week edition. Alabama, after 8 straight weeks of playing football, gets a weekend off before going to Baton Rouge on November 5th to play the Tigers at Tiger Stadium there at Death Valley. All right, Tuscaloosa Tourism and Sports brings you Tider Insider TV every week, and we're glad that they are with us. Alongside Rodney Orr from TiderInsider.com, I'm WVUA 23 Sports Director Gary Harris. Well, Alabama football had 2 clear points of emphasis, Rodney, against Mississippi State. Fewer penalties, and obviously on defense, allow fewer points. I would say check. The Crimson Tide did indeed check off both those boxes in that 30-6 beatdown of the Bulldogs this past Saturday. It seems like every time Alabama loses, they play Mississippi State. Mississippi State not happy about that. I guess the only good news for Mike Leach, he scored his first touchdown against Alabama with no time on the clock. Final play of the game to make it 30-6. All right, Rod, let's get into it. Alabama flag. Let's start there. Just 3 times for 20 yards, and I think a couple of them came on that last drive by Mississippi State.
What was that?
3 times for 20 yards, penalties.
Oh, yeah. I mean, it was what a turnaround. I mean, it was amazing. You know, those in terms of the penalties, the way they've had the lack of discipline, all those things that we've seen, Gary. You know, I thought this was a really big part of the game was number 7, Eli Ricks, getting his opportunity to start. He had a tremendous game. I thought the defense obviously played extremely well. But I tell you what, you're right. Mississippi State, they were determined to score, weren't they?
Yeah, they treated that last drive like it was to win the game, and that's their right, I guess. But it was, I know the Alabama defense, you could see it on their faces. They were disappointed that State got the snap off with about 2 seconds running in the end zone to get on the board. But still, Alabama almost got its second shutout of the season. Of course, they shut out Utah State in the opener and giving up 6 points in the SEC. That's huge, particularly after you gave up 52 the week before. Now, offensively, defense was great. Offense, I thought in the first half, very efficient. 24-0 lead at half. They moved the ball pretty consistently, particularly in the air, and ran it, decently. Second half, of course, they had a good lead, and the defense was playing terrific. I get it, but second half, offense didn't do a lot.
Yeah, not much rhythm. Obviously, like you said, they didn't run the ball well. What they run 29 yards for the entire game, so they could not get the running game going. Now, Mississippi State really does some things different defensively, maybe not the most conventional defense that Alabama's going to see from here on out, and I think sometimes that can make it really, really difficult. And, Bryce Young had a good game, maybe not his best game, Gary, but I think this bye week is certainly really big, not only for him to kind of rest a little bit and get that shoulder in better condition, but they got a lot of guys banged up. It's what you kind of miss when you're talking about rhythm, when you've got again, Darian Dalcourt's done an outstanding job at center, but Seth McLaughlin had been in there at the center spot. You had several defensive linemen that missed the game. So I think there were some things in terms of the injuries that, hopefully they'll get that smoothed over with those guys coming back.
You hope so. Another high point in the game was place kicker Will Reichard. We for the most part, we've taken him for granted since he's been kicking here, but he missed 2 against A&M, then obviously missed that potential game winner at Tennessee. But he goes 3 for 3 on field goals, hitting from 50, 38, and 33. And listen, Alabama may be in some more close games, so it's good to feel like he's back on the right track.
It's real good because, Gary, he hit, what was that one, a 50?
Yeah, 50-yarder.
Yeah, that was
38,
really.
33.
Yeah, that really builds your confidence, I think. And so Will Reichard's been fantastic. And like you said, there's going to be some times down the stretch here that they really may need him. So the confidence is a big thing.
Obviously, we hit on great improvement from one week to the other in the SEC. Alabama got lit up against Tennessee. There's no other way around it. And then they shut down Mississippi State, held them to under 300 total yards, held Will Rogers in check, and they had 15 pass breakups in the game. And you mentioned Eli Ricks. All right, listen, I've gotten a lot of calls on my radio show this week. Why haven't they played Eli Ricks? Listen, we knew he was talented. That's why he was a preseason All-American without even having played at Alabama. That's why he was a freshman All-American at LSU. It's not a question of talent. He's long. He can get in there, make plays on the ball. He's talented, but we don't know what was going on. You have to do certain things here to get the right to play. He obviously did what he needed to do. He got in the game, and clearly he was an impact player.
Yeah, I think we even said last week, when you come here, you have to earn your spot. And I think, he had to make adjustments to the way they do things here, the system that they play here. A lot of things there is to learn. Not to mention, Gary, when he got here, he was injured last year with that shoulder. He had lost a lot of weight, lost a lot of strength. So big thing is he got his opportunity. He responded really, really well.
Other question I've gotten this week is what does this mean for Terrion Arnold? Well, Obviously, it impacted him against Mississippi State. But listen, Terrion Arnold's a good football player. He's young. He's redshirt freshman. Been starting all year at corner. I think there's a chance that he could play some at safety, still play some at corner, and next year obviously factor in, maybe as the in the dime package or the nickel package. But Terrion Arnold's a good football player. He's not going anywhere.
It's gonna be hard to keep him off the field, Gary, as you move along. But you're right. I mean, he'll certainly have a role at some point again.
All right, we mentioned the offense had trouble finding its rhythm. Listen, Bryce is so good. And he's so talented, and he feels the rush. They didn't have rhythm in the second half in the passing game, no doubt about it. Some of that maybe had to do with guys not getting separation. Some of it maybe had to do, as you said, Mississippi State runs an unconventional defense, and some of it might have had to do with Bryce himself. Sometimes, as good as he is, he will go ahead and he'll kind of move out of the pocket pretty quickly and start ad-libbing. That puts a lot of stress on your offensive line, and it also puts some stress sometimes on the receivers to adjust in their routes. So it just, as you said, there just wasn't a lot of timing in the passing game, it seemed like in the second half.
And I'm going to go back to this, too. I think you got to give Mississippi State's defense a lot of credit. I think they do some things differently defensively that can cause you some issues, both in the run game. If you can't get that run game going, it kind of makes it a little bit more difficult in the things they wanted to do, throwing the football. So I give some credit to Mississippi State. I do think this. You've got LSU coming up after this bye week. I think you'll see a more conventional type, traditional type defense, if you want to call it that, something that you don't see as much gimmick, if you want to call it that. But I think that'll certainly, be beneficial to Alabama's chances.
All right. After the game, Coach Saban commented on the offense and it needed more consistency. I do want to bring this up, though, and no excuse here, just a fact. And hopefully this will change with the bye week. Bryce Young, we don't think has thrown much, if at all, during practice with that shoulder. I don't care how talented you are. It's like a relief pitcher that doesn't get any warm-up throws and has got to come in the game and throw, live fastballs to hitters. When you don't get to throw during the week, that puts some stress on you in the game.
Well, you talk about rhythm.
Yeah.
I mean, that's where you develop it in practice, and I think certainly, that's something that has affected it.
Also, the big news in the game, too, outside of how Alabama played, was Nick Saban's decision to play Jermaine Burton, the wide receiver that transferred in from Georgia, after video was put out on the internet of him apparently striking a girl as they tried to get off the field in that mob scene in Knoxville, after the Tennessee loss. All right, I'm not a stirrer. People listen to my radio show. I have opinions. I don't mind giving them, but I'm not going to just say something to try to stir something up. And I'm not, making any evaluation of this. All I'll say is this. All of these people that say Nick Saban is the greatest of all time and an incredible coach, yet everyone or a lot of people want to question his ability to manage his football team. If you're sitting in a television booth somewhere or a radio station somewhere and you're not around the Alabama program, how do you think you know more about what's right for Alabama football and players on the team than Nick Saban? That's all I'm going to say about it. Everybody's having a right to their opinion about what should have been done or shouldn't have been done, but I trust Nick Saban's judgment when it comes to these players and making the decision that he made.
Right, and again, you're right, Gary. I think you put it really, really well. We don't know really what happened down there on the field other than what we saw. There could be some other circumstances. I think Nick Saban said it. He said, listen, you still have to respect the other people, and they're doing things to kind of help Jermaine Burton in terms of, what transpired, in terms of how do you respond to these types of things the next time. So I think that's the key. And again, I'm with you. I mean, I think it's really difficult to judge his decision whether or not Burton should play or not.
All right, let's move on. And it's time now for Coach Talk and head coach Nick Saban on how, when you play at Alabama, and this is not just about coming off the loss to Tennessee, he says that starting positions, they're never guaranteed. Every position is fought for. Even after sometimes you win a position, you can lose it. It's a constant competition to make sure you get playing time at Alabama. It's got to be earned, not given.
Nobody's entitled to a position. Nobody's entitled to going out and not performing well. That's kind of life, I mean, nobody's ever going to have a job where somebody doesn't define a standard and an expectation for how you have to do a job, and if you don't do it, they usually try to get somebody else.
That's exactly the way it goes. I mean, you got to win your job. All right, the kickoff time for Alabama's Week 10 road matchup against number 18 LSU, November 5th. LSU's been complaining they hadn't gotten any SEC home games at night this year. You had a feeling that would be fixed when Alabama comes to town. They'd find a way to get a night game, 6 o'clock on ESPN. Listen, Alabama's used to it. It's going to be fun. It's exciting. But listen, I never had a doubt that Alabama would be at night. Did you? They can't catch an 11 o'clock or a 2:30 game when they play down there.
Yeah, that's right. But, hey, that adds to it. It's the atmosphere down there. Alabama's gone down there and won a lot of games at night.
Yeah, and going to have to try to win another one because, listen, LSU controls its own destiny.
That's right.
After knocking off Ole Miss, they went out. They're going to Atlanta. So this LSU football team, we'll talk much more about it next week, but I am impressed with the job Brian Kelly's done bringing them along. Jaden Daniels, quarterback's playing at a high level. Not surprised. Brian Kelly's a proven head coach.
Yeah, no question, Gary. I mean, you look at a well-coached team, it gets better as the season goes along. This team has made big strides on both sides of the ball.
All right, full analysis of LSU next week. All right, soccer now. And, boy, Alabama's ranked #1. Hard to imagine even this time last season. Crimson Tide clinching its first ever SEC regular season championship on Sunday evening when they beat Florida 2-0. They're now 16-1 and 1 overall, 9-0 in the SEC. They'll close out the regular season at Auburn. Now they're 9-0 in the SEC, and you can bet they want to close it out in style. They don't want to lose to Auburn. Riley Mattingly Parker named the SEC Offensive Player of the Week, while McKinley Crone, the goalkeeper, captured her second consecutive Defensive Player of the Week. And Rod, you know, this is an amazing accomplishment because, again, this isn't like softball, or gymnastics, or football, or even basketball, baseball, where they've won a lot. This team's really never won at a high level. And all of a sudden, what they're doing, got a chance to win a national championship, I think. Congratulations to Wes Hart and his team.
Congratulations. You're right, Gary. I mean, you know, again, what a tremendous season, you know, that they've had. And, you know, hopefully this is the start of a lot more.
Keep it rolling. All right, still to come on Tider Insider Television. Alabama basketball is ready to tip off. We'll talk about some of the preseason hype around the men's and women's programs. And, of course, as always, we'll be getting to your phone calls and emails. Plus, the 1992 National Championship team was back at Bryant-Denny Stadium. We'll share some of our favorite memories from that special season coming up, including the coach, Gene Stallings, 87 years young and still back in T-Town. And as I said, we'll get to your phone calls, emails, and tweets. As always, the phone number 205-348-WVUA. That's 348-9882. Go ahead and call so you can get through. We'll be right back with the show that takes you inside the Crimson Tide, TITV. And we're back on TITV, brought to you by Tuscaloosa Tourism and Sports with Rodney Orr. I'm Gary Harris. Alabama men's basketball has a exhibition game this Saturday at Foster Auditorium. Make a note, Foster Auditorium at 2 p.m. against Southern Illinois. Ought to be fun, but not at Coleman. We had the SEC Media Days last week in Birmingham, Mountain Brook, actually the Grand Bohemian Hotel. Alabama, by the way, is 19 in the preseason coaches poll, top 25. At SEC tip-off, Coach Oates really excited about this team, thinks they've got more depth, they've got more athleticism, says they're going to play defense or they won't play, and he really thinks he's got a chance to be good this year, and I do too. SEC women's basketball held its tip-off on Tuesday. The men were on Wednesday. Coach Christy Curry was there with Brittany Davis and Jada Rice. Alabama picked to finish 10th out of 14 teams, but the SEC's loaded, so that really is not as bad as it sounds, 10 out of 14. But listen, they got a lot of players back, got some transfers, got some freshmen, and had a great year last year, advancing deep in the NIT, so look out for the women. All right, now back to football. Alabama, this is a special group. Welcome back the 1992 13-0 unanimous national championship team on Saturday night. It's the 30th anniversary of that incredible season. Time flies. The head coach of that team, Gene Stallings, now 87, but coach was there, man. And this 1990 team, Rodney, featured one of the greatest defenses in college football history, and we'll remember they rose to number 2. They were never number 1 until the national championship game, after that game, but they were a huge underdog against Miami. I was there. Alabama ran them out of the Superdome that night at the Sugar Bowl, 34-13, put Gino Torretta on his back, and that team, you know, there's been a lot of great teams since, a lot of great teams before, but I'm telling you what, that 92 team was something special.
Probably the most dominant, certainly one of the most dominant defenses I think I've ever seen, Gary. And what made them even more impressive, frankly, was they didn't have much offense. I mean, sometimes they were the offense.
Yeah.
I mean,
the defense was offense.
Yeah.
David Palmer in the punt return game was offense. But you know what? That defense was just not going to let them lose. Remember in Tennessee, it was 17-0, and all of a sudden it's 17-10, and Tennessee's driving a chance to tie or win the game, and Chris Donnelly came up with a huge pick. That defense always made a play.
Sure did.
All right, more TITV, including phone calls and emails. When we come back, go ahead and give us a ring, 205-348-9882. We want to hear from you, Tider Insider Nation, next. Watch out for Alabama men's golf in the spring. They're going to be really good. And Cannon Claycomb is one of the best golfers in the country. He's a finalist for the Fred Haskins Award watch list. And this guy's got a lot of game. And look out, again, for him and Alabama golf. They've had a good fall season. They'll be ready in the spring. All right, welcome back into TITV with Rodney Orr. I'm Gary Harris, and we're going to get right out on the phone lines. And our good friend Rick down in Brent is with us to lead off things. Hey, Rick, good evening. Rick, you with us? All right, Rick, or don't have Rick, but we got his question. Don't know what happened. Worst pass interference call ever against UT. Yeah, Rick, hopefully you're able to hear us. Of course, I know he's talking about the one against Malachi Moore at the end of the game. I don't know if it was the worst. I'm going to say this. I think it was bad. I have not hidden my feelings on this. I think it was a terrible call. Did he hook him with the left arm a little bit? Maybe he did. Malachi Moore's running with the guy. He turns. The tight end has the ball in his hands. He slaps it out of his hands. It goes to Kool-Aid McKinstry. He returns it back. Should have been into the game. So, yeah, I think it was a terrible call, and I'm going to always believe it was a terrible call. I don't care how bad Alabama's secondary played that day and how much they got burned. At the end of the game, Malachi Moore made a play, and it got taken away from him. Yeah. End of story.
Yeah.
You know, they had a lot of opportunities to win the game, but that call certainly impacted the outcome of the game.
You're getting fired up.
Well, why people say you're crying when you point that out, I don't have any idea. Alabama still should have won the game, still could have won the game. I'm not denying that. But to make a play on the ball like Malachi Moore did, like I said, I'm no coach, but I don't know what interference is anymore.
That was a horrible call. It really was. And I think when you look at the still shots, Gary, I think that's where people get confused. You look at the still shots and you see the arm behind the back, you think maybe it's pass interference. You watch that video from the back, I mean, it was bang, bang.
Bang, bang. Great play is what it was. Just a shame that official had the gall to throw that flag in that situation. I'm going to tell you this, because it was so – I think if the kid makes the catch or if McKinstry doesn't intercept the ball, I don't think he throws the flag.
Well, he was waving incomplete.
Yeah, so there we go. All right, let's go up to Hubbardville for our next phone call. And let's check in with, is it Taylor?
Nah, it's Caleb.
Oh, Caleb. Okay. Well, they told me Taylor. Caleb's a regular caller. Sorry about that, Caleb. Caleb, how are you? What you got going on?
I'm doing good. I know guys like Otis and DJ Dale and Boybe didn't play Saturday, but I just wanted to say I thought Damon Payne done a pretty good job.
Yeah, I did too. I mean, considering Damon Payne's played very, very little, you got a Boybe out, you got DJ Dale out, you got Taheem Otis out, and I thought number 44 came in there and played well.
He did. That redshirt freshman from Michigan certainly did play well. I thought Jamil Burrows made some plays. Jamarian Latham, we saw more of him. Yeah, I think they did an outstanding job. You know, when you go into a game like that, Gary, and you don't have a lot of those players, you kind of start to see how the young players are developing. I thought that was really good to see.
All right, we got more phone calls and emails on the way, so you keep it dialed into TITV. There's your phone number, there's the email address, and we'll be right back with more after this on WVUA 23. All right, welcome back to TITV with Rodney Orr. I'm Gary Harris. Let's get right back to the phones and emails. This is our email question of the day brought to you by KDM Service Corporation, serving your family like our family. Here it is. Is there a way that the ref crew from the Alabama-Tennessee game could be banned from future Alabama games? That's from David over in Northeast Alabama there in Center. Some great crappie fishing there in Center. Rod, there's been a lot of discussion about the officials. I thought, and maybe I'm imagining this, but I thought way back in the day, in the 80s and 90s when I first got into broadcasting, that coaches could strike certain crews. At least that's what I'd always been told. Really, there's not anything you can do unless the SEC decides. They handle officiating assignments, and based on what I've seen from some of these crews, with some of the blunders that they've had, and then they're right back on that same team's game in a few weeks, I doubt it would be the answer.
I don't expect that, no.
Yeah.
I wouldn't expect that.
So just going to have to move on. All right, what do we got coming up next? Got a phone call? Yeah, Reg in Birmingham. That's my mistake. Reg in Birmingham. How you doing, Reg? Good to hear from you, buddy.
I can't get over the game 2 weeks ago. We've got to get over it, though. But I just want to ask you, these sports writers, Feinbaum and all of them, are saying that Saban should have punished the kid that was accused of hitting the girl. They don't make any mention of the golf balls that are thrown and bottles that are thrown. How would anybody act in a game like that where people act like a bunch of idiots when they win a game. Coach Bryant used to say, "Act like you've been there before." Get your idea on that.
Play stupid games, win stupid prizes. I've been talking about this for years with Alabama, because no team gets the field charged more when it loses than Alabama. Listen, I understand all it's enthusiasm. They're college kids. They lost 15 in a row. I get it. It's fun in games until somebody seriously gets hurt, and it could happen. And I'm not excusing anybody's behavior, but the fact that it's just being glossed over, that say what you want to say, they're not supposed to be on the field. Players that lose an emotional game like that shouldn't have to deal with that in the first place. Now, you got to conduct yourself regardless. I get it, because if they storm the field and you're a player and you make a mistake like Jermaine Burton did, and you seemingly have contact with somebody, you're the one that's going to catch the heat. But I'm telling you now, this is going to lead to more than this at some point. There is going to be a college athlete that is going to be hot-headed and mad and upset and emotional. Somebody's going to bump into him, and it could be worse.
I just think it could have been prevented. I mean, because Tennessee went out there and basically encouraged it.
Yeah,
they enticed
they
it.
They set up for it.
Yeah, exactly. And we knew this was coming if Tennessee won.
Just like at Iron Bowls, just like at A&M last year.
Right.
When Alabama comes to town, these schools and these stadium security teams, they don't care. They understand. It's almost like we are encouraging it. If we beat Alabama, we're storming the field. Not going to keep them off the field tonight. How many times have you heard that one? So, it kind of is what it is. All right. We're going to take a break, and we're going to come back with more right after this. We'll get ready to wrap it up. It's been a little rainy, but it's cleared up nicely here in T-Town. Thanks for the phone calls and emails. We're back after this. Well, Jack from our sports staff went and shot this exhibit today, and it's outstanding. And Jack said he'd never been to the Bryant Museum. Don't be like Jack. Go to the Bryant Museum. And now you've got even more incentive. On display, Bryce Young's exhibit featuring the Heisman, Maxwell, Manning, and Davey O'Brien trophies. All of them.
That's
Rod, how
neat.
cool is that? It's going to be on exhibit until November the 5th, so you need to get by there. Like I said, you need to go anyway, but this is some added incentive to see probably the greatest collection of quarterback hardware ever won by QB at the University of Alabama. All right, that's going to do it. For Rodney Orr, I'm Gary Harris. Thanks for watching TITV, and we'll talk to you next week when we preview LSU. Good night, everybody.